Hey everybody, we're on to our next build and it's not what I said it was going to be. We're moving on to the Hughes 500D. First I'm starting with these figures, and the bright white is really hard to see on camera, but the mold lines on this thing are horrible. This hand on this side is just a blob that goes into his body, so we're going to try to work on that. If I can't get this guy cleaned up, then we're not going to use pilots and we're just going to use this as a static display. Now hopefully with the primer you can see him a little better. I still have mold lines to clean up on him. The crossbar for his headsets wasn't even there, so I just added a piece of styrene strip across there to get that going. One thing I have to say is there's something up with this plastic. It's very soft, easy to scrape away the mold lines, but when I used my Plastruct Bondine, it really melted it really quick. I've never had that experience with any other plastics. So if you're using it, be careful. It ran all over and I got a little extra cleanup. So we're gonna keep working on him and see how he comes out. Hopefully they come out well. This way we can make an aerial diorama instead of just having it sitting on the ground. We got our co-pilot done up and now I'm working on the pilot, starting to block in his colors. Just did a basic paint job on him, put the khaki on, black straps. I did a brown wash on the uniform. I just put a basic flesh tone with flesh wash. His eyes I didn't do because they're so small. I used an old technique that I learned on Fine Scale Modeler a long time ago from some of the figure modelers. Because of the scale and how far away, just put a pretty dark gray wash in the eye slits and that should be good enough at the scale. The only thing I did add was on top is the headband going across. That was non-existent, so I just took a piece of styrene and added that in. In the back, I filled in his back. There's a huge gap here. I didn't go crazy making it perfect because his back's gonna be on the seat, but where his shoulders were, I had to fill that in so it can't be seen. And now we'll get to work on this guy, just adding the black, the flesh, the washes, and we should be good to go. The pilot's all blocked in now, so the next step is I'm going to add wash to his jumpsuit, his face, and his hair. Doing the best I can on this little guy, and he should be done. For his flesh, we're just going to use Game Color Wash from Vallejo. For his uniform and hair, we're just going to go with Game Color Wash again, except this time umber. Next step, now that we got the pilots done up, is I'm going to paint the rotor blades. They're just going to be flat black. Unfortunately, this is the one rotor blade that came messed up. This is going to be black. We're going to paint the tips orange, and the metal parts, I'm going to use my favorite color, oily steel. And that's it. We have our flat black on there. Next, we'll hand paint on the steel once this is dry. I'll tape off the tip. I won't use the decals, and we'll paint the tips orange. I have all the rotors mapped out. I just used the decal sheet so I knew what size they are, but I made the mistake and I grabbed the rotors without having a glove on, so I got oils on some of them, so I'm gonna have to fix that up once I'm done. At this point, working on the rotors, I made a bunch of mistakes. The first major mistake I made was not putting my gloves on, and I got oils all over the props. So if anybody's telling you not to wear gloves while you're painting or handling your models, they're misinforming you and they're leading you in the wrong direction. I don't care how clean you think your hands are, that you're always going to have natural oils on your hands, and it may mess something up. Second thing was, I was too involved in looking at the camera to see what I was filming instead of realizing that I was starting to get a lot of paint buildup on my glove and changing my glove. So I got orange on the props, which is no big deal. I'm going to touch that up. It happens, it's modeling. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna let these dry. We're gonna pull off that tape. If we have a nice clean line, we're gonna hit them with a clear coat to save the orange that we've already done. Then we'll tape off the orange, we'll redo the black. It's not a big deal. Mistakes happen during modeling. Just keep pressing on, come back and do it, and try not to let things get in your head or in your way of doing something. And if you feel you are frustrated with what has gone on, take it, put it to the side, come back to it in about a half an hour, or even leave it for a day or two and come back when you're settled down, and things will go a lot smoother. Now we get to see if we passed or failed. And we have a nice clean line on the orange, so hopefully the rest are okay. As you can see, I wasn't paying attention at all to what I was doing. So we're gonna clear coat and fix all these up, and we'll have some nice props. Well, after my goof up, we've come prepared. We have gloves, we're not getting oily fingerprints on this anymore. We taped off our orange on top of the rotor blades, and now we're gonna redo the black that I totally messed up. I'm not gonna show you the whole thing because it's just painting the black again. We'll paint it, and then I'll show you the end result. Like I said, we have our favorite oily steel from Model Color by Vallejo. I put that on there, and then I used a Vallejo wash, black wash on there, so those are drying up. As soon as they're done, I'll hit them with another dull coat, and the props will be finished, and then we'll move on to the very difficult part of putting these onto the rotor itself. Next up, we're gonna work on the cockpit floor. That's actually Mr. Surfacer Gray, which probably could pass for the light gray, but we're gonna throw some Ammo light gray on here to give it a better shade. Okay, I don't know if you can see that in the wet paint or not. You can see all the fish eyes in there. I got oil or something on there from my hands. So I'm gonna let this dry. We're gonna strip it down, and then we're gonna redo the paint. Okay, I stripped down the paint, I repainted it, and I was still getting some fish eyes in here, so there's definitely something on the paint that I wasn't able to get off. You really can't see it that much, plus this is the back of the cockpit of the helicopter, so I'm not too worried about it. So the paint is dry, there's a clear coat on here that's drying now. The next thing I have to do is put a wash. Once that's on there and dry, we'll start putting the pieces inside the cockpit. Now we're starting to do some work on the cockpit interior. I have the gray floor done here, the white paneling here and here. I just added a blue-gray wash from Vallejo on here just to bring it out a little bit and make it look a little bit dirty. So hopefully this cockpit will be coming together soon. Next up, I'm going to be working on the seats. I'm going to paint these Thar Brown from scale 75. After using the Thar Brown, I just put an umber wash on there. It darkens it up a little bit, and I left some on there because I wanted it to look a little grungy, because not everything is perfect, but I didn't want them overly grungy. And I did the same thing with the back two seats. All I have to do is the black on the legs, and these will be done. And this is where your problems are going to begin with building the cockpit. As you can see, part B7 is supposed to have this big notch that fits into part A5 over here, so they made up nicely. Unfortunately, on the kit itself, there's only this little peg, and you can see that the piece over here is smaller than the piece up here, so it doesn't fit right and it doesn't have that big notch. And you can also see how it sits apart, so you got to kind of force it down and glue it into place. Now when you come over to the completed cockpit over here, this looks kind of like it's straight, but over here it looks canted. It's going to end up canted, and I'm already trying to test fit it into the body, and I'm having a lot of trouble with it. So this is where we are with the cockpit. As I was saying before, this part should have been more erect. These should be touching the back here. These seats back here, there's little holes in the floor. I had to open those up because they don't fit in properly. They just sit on top. And also we're going to have this gap here because of the ill-fitting parts of this kit. So we're not going to go crazy with this kit anymore. We're going to avoid the lighting and everything like that. It's just not worth it. It's not going to be the greatest kit in the world, but we're going to do our best with it and make a little helicopter. It's a slow going process right now. We have the decal in there. We have the foot pedals in there. Those had to be trimmed down on both sides in the front to get them to fit right. So we'll make progress as we go along and keep showing you what we're doing. With the foot pedals glued in, there's a problem of putting little Jim Jones in here. His feet touch the top of the pedals and he won't sit in here right. So what I did was I broke it off. It's loose right now to push those pedals out a little bit further, but he still doesn't sit in this seat right. It's a little hard to do because of how his hand sits in the seat there, so his feet won't be touching the pedals. I'll try to get him in there the best I can and make him look natural, but this is just another deficiency of the kit. So little Jim Jones over here and his unsuspecting co-pilot Ronnie, they're not going to be in the ship. We're just going to hold on to them, maybe put them on the shelf or something like that. But I'm definitely not going to throw them out. They can't be used in the cockpit, and I'll show you why. The problem with the cockpit is the figures don't fit these seats very well, so you have to do one of two things. You either have to put the figures in there and leave the sticks out, or put the sticks in there and leave the figures out. Since this is just going to be a static display on a wooden base, I'm opting to leave the figures out, and I'll do something else with those guys. But this kit definitely is not a top quality kit. That's why it's only $11.99. You are going to run into some problems, a lot of problems with this build. We have the control panel painted in flat black and flat coated, so the last thing we got to do on this is just put the decal on. And this is our highly detailed panel for the control panel. So the film is way past it, so I have to cut really close to this. I'm going to do that off camera, otherwise my head is going to be in the way of this camera. And there we go, the decal's cut out. We're just going to soak it and then get it on the piece, and I'll show you that in a second. As the decal's soaking, I'm just going to add some Mark Setter to the piece. This way when that decal gets on here, it'll snuggle down hopefully nicely. These decals aren't the greatest. I'll soak up the excess with a Q-tip once it's ready. Sorry about the little bit of a glare. We will get that in place, and then it looks like it's going to try to bubble up on the corners, and then I'll hit that with Mr. Mark Softer to settle down. So not only do the kit pieces not fit right, I don't know if you can see the little bit of corner. I still trimmed as close as I could, and it still has a lot of overhang. The decals don't fit properly either. So now, once this is dry, like I said, I'm going to hit it with Mr. Mark Softer, and hopefully those corners fold over, stay in place, and then we'll hit it with a flat coat. After 5 applications of Mr. Softer, still the edges don't want to conform around the sides there just to make it tight onto the piece. These decals are thick and they're really oversized. Pretty horrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clear coat these to set them and lock them in place, and then I'm going to try to take my X-Acto knife and cut the edges as close as I can, just to clean it up and make it look a little bit better. Unfortunately, I thought I was recording and I wasn't. What happened was when I was putting on the control panel here, it knocked off the pilot side pedals. This side was fine. Unfortunately, these pedals again are a piece that are not made correctly and they're too big. So you can see this pedal's a little smaller. I had to cut it down this way it fit. This is a very ill-fitting kit. I love the Hughes 500D, but I do not love this model kit. So this is pretty much the cockpit all done up right now. Well, that's it for part 1 on the Hughes 500D from Academy in 1/48 scale. This is the tiny cockpit. The price tag says it all about this kit. If you're looking for a kit that's going to frustrate you, not fit well, have horrible decals, go out and buy this kit for, I think it's like 12 bucks. and see if you can make a gem out of it. Right now, I'm leaving parts off, especially the pilots and stuff, and we're not going to go crazy with the lights and the base like I was going to, because I thought it was going to be a better kit. My goal now is, that's 2 kits in a row that aren't great. This one will be finished. We're going to do something with that 51 Chevy. We're going to pick something much better after this. We're going to pick a Bandai kit. We're going to pick a Tamiya kit or something like that, Polar Lights kit, but we're going to move on to a better kit once we're done with this one. So if you haven't yet, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel out. It lets the algorithm know that you guys like this content, and it spreads it to other modelers. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves out there, guys and girls. I'm feeling much better today, so that's a good thing. I will see you on the next video. Take care, and bye-bye.